Okay. Issue 4, Trump's future.
As he leaves office, President Trump is considering what comes next. The president seems set to maintain a regular presence on social media. But beyond Twitter, what plans are in hand? Well, some suggest Trump is likely to set up a television network to offer entertainment and analysis. We also know Trump has political ambitions, with his super PAC set to play a role in the Republican Party's future. And will Trump run again in 2024?
Kelsey, it's hard to gauge this president's strategy, or at least his intentions, in the best of times. But what do you think we will be seeing from former President Trump in 2021?
Yeah, well, it's hard to predict, but I think we can all agree that Trump will remain in the public sphere one way or another, whether that is through starting his own media company, whether that is a speaking tour, or whether that's running for president again in 2024. I think the one thing I'm confident about is the Trump family will be around for a while. If President Trump does not run for president in 2024, I wouldn't be surprised to see one of his family members seek some kind of public office, including the presidency. That said, for the sort of larger Republican coalition and what the Trump movement means for that, well, although Republicans lost the presidency, I am encouraged by the diversity that our party is now being represented as, and I think that's only going to grow. And I think, despite his flaws, we do need to give President Trump a lot of credit for really connecting with and speaking to Americans from all different backgrounds. It's a bright future for the GOP.
Clarence.
Yeah, I agree that President Trump has been speaking to a lot of people from broad backgrounds, and he saw something that most everybody else missed in what we now call his base. The disenchanted voters and non-voters out there, many of them non-college whites, it's often been said, people who are on the wrong end, or excuse me, the losing end of globalism and the other automation and other changes that have been going on. So I advise Democrats, everybody who wants to be involved in politics, pay attention to how Donald Trump did it, because I didn't think he could do it, how anybody else did, but he's accomplished a lot in terms of his own self-promotion and building a movement that has got a religious fervor to it. Frankly, as far as his ability to actually get reelected again, I don't know if people are going to aren't going to be ready for him this time, including rival Republican candidates and up-and-comers. But then again, around Trump, I've been wrong before, and I'm not alone.
Pat?
I don't know what Donald Trump is going to do himself,
Right.
but he is sui generis. He's a figure for which there is no comparable figure, no similar figure. And he based his success here not only on his persona, and not only for the figure he was, but on the issues: border security, no more these forever wars in the Middle East, get out of those, end these trade deals, bring back manufacturing to the United States, make America strong, put America first, forget all this globalism and the rest of this nonsense. And this agenda of issues is going to have a voice and a spokesman for a long time in the Republican Party. People have endorsed that agenda, and there's not, in my lifetime, not even Reagan was stronger with the Republican Party base than Donald Trump is today.
Eleanor.
Well, I'm not glorifying Mr. Trump the way you all are. I see him as the grifter in chief as in his next phase of life. He will continue to monetize his personality and to commercialize things beyond any ethical lines. Look at the PAC that he formed. If any donations up to $5,000 go directly into his pocket. Over $5,000, allegedly, they go for legal fees to fund lawsuits that were never going to go anywhere and aren't going anywhere. Secondly, I would point out, as Matt Drudge goes, so does a good portion of the conservative movement in this country. And Matt Judge, who Pat Buchanan has followed and talked very fondly of for a long time, basically had a headline that said, "It's time to move on." And I'm echoing Matt Drudge. This president, the way he's behaved since losing the election is disgraceful. The way he is willing to tear down American democracy to serve his own selfish need to be not seen as a loser. So what he does next, I don't know. But if the Republican Party can't figure out how to elevate other candidates and to figure out what they're about, other than Mr. Trump's particular whims at any given moment, they don't deserve to be called a major political party. And I'd love to see what they're going to do with Marjorie Taylor Greene, the open QAnon supporter who was just elected to Congress. Do I get to tie her around every Republican the way you all look at AOC as some sort of destructive force around Democrats?
Go ahead. Do it, please. Do it.
I'm going to try to do it.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask Kelsey on that point. Eleanor makes a legitimate observation that there are some rather odd characters in the Republican Party alongside AOC who do, in some sense, represent that kind of populist momentum birthed by Trump, or at least brought to another apex by Trump. I mean, how do you, Kelsey, see the various intellectual populist strands of conservatism dealing with Trump, in exile? I mean, he may be Napoleon returning to fight another great battle and get beaten at Waterloo, but he may not be. I mean, it's a hard one to judge.
This is actually the thread I'm most interested in following over the next 4 years. Is there going to be a figure that is able to connect with Trump's base in the way that only President Trump has been able to do thus far, but perhaps won't turn off so many moderate voters with his or her tweets? I think there are a number of promising figures I can think of. Dan Crenshaw, Nikki Haley, Josh Hawley, Marco Rubio, and those are only political figures. I think conservatives are more and more enthused by outsiders coming in and looking to shake up Washington instead of electing more of the same, which I'm sorry, but is exactly what Democrats just did by nominating Joe Biden as their candidate for to represent the Democrat Party. So I'd look for more shakeups in the future. Whether or not we'll have a figure like that can connect with Trump's base, again, without maybe some of the tweets and some of the personality traits that weren't so appreciated, we'll find out.
Clarence, I didn't hear an answer about Marjorie Taylor Greene.
To be honest, I don't know that much about her.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that much about her yet. Yeah. I will be watching, but I will say I'll be curious to see if sort of her coalition becomes as loud and prominent as the Squad. I mean, they are a thing. They are a loud voice, and they represent a large base of Democrats.
I also want to say I admire AOC. I think she is the future of the party, and she deserves a seat at the table. She is in no way comparable to Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is a conspiracy theorist. And if you can't figure out what she's about and can't say anything negative about her, you're like a lot of other Republicans who can't find their spine to say anything that might alienate the votes of some people in this country who cannot accept facts, whether it comes to the election or COVID or anything else.
All right. Well, let me jump in for a second there. I would suggest that this Republican Congresswoman coming in is on another planet. But so also I would say, and as a conservative, I would look optimistically to AOC taking reins forwards for the Democratic Party in the future, because the ideology I would suggest she represents, democratic socialism, does not have a particularly glorious history, nor will it be particularly inclined to the hearts of the American people. We shall see. Pat or Clarence? Clarence, who wants to go next? Maybe Clarence, because you can tell me.
Well, I just very quickly, Tom, be careful. You're reminding me of Democrats who are saying, "Oh yeah, I hope Ronald Reagan runs. He won't have a chance. He's a washed-up actor."
Well, we will see. Yeah, right.
Or people like me who said Donald Trump, he doesn't know anything about politics. What's he going to do? AOC is a smart lady, Tom. If you ever get a chance to talk to her, whether you agree with her or not, she's a sharp young lady.
I agree. I just don't think
yeah.
socialism is a particular. Anyway, I'm interrupting you.
That's the thing. Social Security is socialism. Ronald Reagan campaigned against Medicare as Marxist, socialist, blah, blah, blah. It's the most popular program the government's got right now. I mean, let's not underestimate people. A part of politics is salesmanship, and that's where Donald Trump is strong. Yeah. He doesn't know that much about the world or history books, etc. But he does know how to publicize himself. But when it comes to the people wanting to shake things up, I'm reminded of that Elvis Presley song, I'm all shook up. I want to tell you, a lot of people have Trump fatigue right now. I just did that for you young people who haven't heard the song before.
Let's go to Pat, and I'll give Eleanor the further word. But Pat.
Okay. Yeah, I think the future of American politics is these parties sort themselves out. The left-wing Democratic Party is going to have a tough time. But the real future of American politics, I think, is politically democratic socialism mixed with cultural Marxism on the left will tend to take over the Democratic Party. It's a very powerful movement. You know, Black Lives Matter, unfortunately, is right in the middle of it. And that'll be posited against American nationalism and America first, a very powerful force, which is now very dominant, I think, in the Republican Party.
Okay,
and this
Eleanor.
is the way things are breaking down worldwide.
All right, final word, Eleanor.
Socialism is a loaded word. It's interpreted differently by different people. It really backfired on Democrats and where people associate it with Venezuela. This kind of democratic socialism that AOC is talking about is the kind that they have in Europe, and where healthcare is a right and basic needs of life. You don't have to worry about them from day to day. Okay. But I think it's a hard sell. And I don't see the Democratic Party developing that as its strategy going forward. Not at all.
How much, I would simply end on this, how much innovation, how much sustained economic growth compared to the United States do we see from Europe? Not a lot. I would blame that on socialism. That's just my view.